My name is Amanda, and at 32, I built my graphic design business from nothing but determination and long nights hunched over my desk. My younger sister Rachel never understood hard work, preferring to coast through life on charm and handouts. When I discovered my business credit card cut in half and tucked inside my purse last month, I knew exactly who was responsible for the $60,000 missing from my account. What my sister didn't realize was that cutting the card was actually the biggest mistake she could have made. Before I tell you how I caught her, let me know where you're watching from and drop a like if you've ever had to deal with toxic family members. Growing up in Boston with my younger sister Rachel and our single mother Patricia shaped everything about who I am today. When I was 10, our father walked out, leaving nothing behind but unpaid bills and broken promises. That sudden departure threw our family into financial chaos, forcing my mother to work multiple jobs just to keep a roof over our heads. As the oldest child, I naturally fell into the role of second caretaker, helping with Rachel, who was only 7 at the time. Even as a child, Rachel showed early signs of entitlement and jealousy that would eventually define our relationship as adults. While I took on extra chores and responsibilities, Rachel developed a knack for manipulation, learning quickly how to cry or throw tantrums when asked to help. My mother, exhausted from working double shifts at the hospital as a nurse, often took the path of least resistance. It was easier to let Rachel off the hook than deal with another emotional meltdown. "Amanda can handle it," became my mother's unintentional mantra. You know your sister gets upset easily. I remember one Christmas when I was 14, spending weeks creating a watercolor painting for my art class final project. The winter scene of our neighborhood had earned me an A+ and praise from my teacher, who suggested I consider art school someday. I had carefully wrapped it as a gift for my mother, proud of what I had accomplished. The morning after I placed it under our modest tree, I found it torn in half, with crayon scribbles across what remained. Rachel claimed it was an accident, that she just wanted to make it prettier with her crayons. Instead of consequences, my mother simply sighed and told me, "You know how creative your sister is. She was just trying to contribute." By high school, the pattern was firmly established. When I graduated with honors, Rachel threw a fit during the ceremony because I was receiving too much attention, and she only had one graduation too. My mother left my celebration dinner early to take Rachel for ice cream and console her. These early experiences taught me 2 important lessons. I could only rely on myself, and working hard was the only way forward. While my peers enjoyed typical teenage freedom, I worked part-time at a local coffee shop, saving every penny for college. My dream of studying graphic design required tuition money that our family simply didn't have. Through determination and countless early mornings, I managed to save enough for community college classes while applying for every scholarship I could find. The partial scholarship I eventually won to study graphic design at the State University felt like validation for all those missed high school parties and extra shifts. During this same period, Rachel dropped out of her senior year, only completing her GED after my mother hired a private tutor. While I was budgeting for textbooks and bus fare, Rachel received a new car for her 18th birthday, my mother explaining that Rachel needed the confidence boost to help her succeed. College meant living in the cheapest apartment I could find, eating ramen noodles, and continuing to work part-time jobs while maintaining a full course load. Meanwhile, Rachel cycled through minimum wage jobs, never lasting more than a few months before quitting because a manager was totally unfair or the work was boring. Despite her sporadic employment, she somehow maintained a wardrobe of trendy clothes and regular salon appointments, courtesy of our mother's credit card. My junior year of college, I landed an internship at a local advertising agency that opened doors I hadn't even known existed. Working nights and weekends alongside experienced designers, I built my portfolio while absorbing every lesson they offered. The internship extended through my senior year, eventually leading to a job offer upon graduation. Graduating with honors felt like the culmination of years of sacrifice, but Rachel managed to make even that day about herself, showing up late to the ceremony and complaining loudly about the length of the proceedings. When my name was called, I could hear her telling our mother, "It's just a piece of paper." Not like she cured cancer or anything. My first job at Morgan Design Group taught me the realities of the industry, the long hours and demanding clients. For 5 years, I absorbed everything, volunteering for the toughest projects and staying late to perfect my skills. Rachel, meanwhile, dropped out of community college after a single semester, declaring it a waste of time when she could be living her life. After 5 years building my reputation and client list, I made the terrifying decision to launch my own design studio. Those early days of entrepreneurship were a lesson in humility and perseverance. Working from my tiny apartment to minimize overhead costs, I took any project that came my way, gradually building a portfolio of successful campaigns. Rachel never missed an opportunity to dismiss my career, referring to my work as just drawing pictures on a computer whenever family gathered. "When are you going to get a real job?" became her standard greeting, despite the fact that she hadn't maintained steady employment herself since high school. The turning point for my business came when I landed the Brighton Brewery account, redesigning their entire brand identity from logo to packaging. The success of that project led to referrals and steady growth, allowing me to finally move out of my home office and into a small commercial space downtown. Hiring 2 talented designers to help with the expanding workload felt like a dream come true after years of solo struggle. Last spring, my business received a feature in Boston Business Monthly, highlighting our growth and innovative approach to branding. The morning the article was published, my phone lit up with congratulatory messages from colleagues and clients, but nothing from my family until my mother called that evening. "Rachel's really upset about that article," she said instead of congratulations. "She feels like you're showing off. You know how sensitive she is about her job situation." Rachel's job situation at that point consisted of her 3rd multi-level marketing attempt that year, selling overpriced skincare to increasingly irritated friends on social media. Her jealousy manifested in increasingly pointed comments at family gatherings, suggesting that my success must involve knowing the right people or implying that design work was easy money for little effort. Despite the family tension, my business continued to thrive. Just last month, I had the opportunity to pitch to Newark Technologies, a potential client whose contract would allow me to expand my team and invest in new equipment. The presentation went well, but the client made it clear that handling their workload would require upgrading our production capabilities significantly. The weekend before the suspicious charges appeared on my business account, my mother invited me for Sunday dinner. Rachel was between apartments again and staying with my mother temporarily, a situation that had already stretched to 3 months. During dinner, Rachel questioned me about my income and the Newark Technologies opportunity with unusual interest. "So, how much would you make from this deal anyway?" she asked, an edge to her voice. "It's not about the immediate payout," I explained. "It's about building a relationship with a client that could lead to ongoing work." Rachel rolled her eyes. "Right, but seriously, how much are we talking? 6 figures? More? I always wonder how you really make so much money just making logos and stuff." The conversation left me uneasy, but I never imagined how far Rachel's resentment would push her. 3 weeks later, I was working late finalizing designs for Newark Technologies, fueled by my 4th cup of coffee and determination to impress this potential long-term client. My phone vibrated with an email notification from my bank. Large transaction alert, $8, $7.99 at Luxe Boutique. My first thought was that my card information had been stolen, since I would never spend that kind of money on clothing, especially not with the business equipment upgrades I needed to finance. With a growing sense of alarm, I logged into my banking app. My stomach dropped as I scrolled through a series of large transactions spanning the past 2 weeks. Luxury boutiques, high-end restaurants, designer shoe stores, and even a day spa with a $3,000 charge. 12 transactions in total, adding up to just over $60,000, all on my business credit card. Panic swept through me like a cold wave. That money was earmarked for the new equipment I needed for the Newark Technologies contract. Without it, I wouldn't be able to handle their workload, potentially losing the biggest opportunity my business had ever seen. My hands trembled as I dialed the bank's 24-hour fraud department. "I'm seeing charges I didn't make," I explained to the representative, my voice tight with stress. My card must have been compromised. After answering security questions, the representative reviewed the transactions with me. "These were all made with the physical card present," she explained. The chip was read at each location, and a signature matching the one on file was provided. This detail confused me further. My business credit card was supposed to be in the secure drawer of my home office desk, where I always kept it unless I was making a specific business purchase. I only used it for legitimate business expenses that could be properly documented for tax purposes. As the representative continued detailing the fraudulent charges, I noticed something else troubling. All the transactions had taken place in Boston, many at stores within a few miles of my home. This wasn't some international fraud ring, but someone local who had physical access to my card. "We'll begin an investigation," the representative assured me. "In the meantime, we'll freeze the card to prevent any further unauthorized charges." After hanging up, I went straight to my home office to check the secure drawer where I kept important business documents and cards. My hand froze on the drawer pull as a memory surfaced. Rachel stopping by my apartment 2 weeks earlier, claiming she needed to use my printer for job applications. I had stepped out briefly to grab us coffee from the shop downstairs, leaving her alone in my home office for about 15 minutes. The drawer wasn't locked, since I hadn't expected to need security measures against my own sister. Inside, my business checkbook and tax documents appeared undisturbed, but the small envelope where I kept my business credit card was empty. My mind raced through possibilities. Maybe I had moved the card to my wallet for a recent purchase? Perhaps it had fallen out somewhere? But deep down, an unsettling suspicion was taking root. The timing of Rachel's visit, her recent questions about my business finances, and her history of envy created a pattern I couldn't ignore. I checked my wallet thoroughly, finding only my personal debit and credit cards. With growing desperation, I emptied my purse onto the kitchen table, searching through receipts, lip balm, loose change, and crumpled tissues. Just as I was about to give up, I noticed something in the zippered inner pocket, a place I rarely used. There, tucked away where it wouldn't be immediately visible, were 2 halves of my business credit card, cut cleanly through the middle, directly through the magnetic strip and chip. The discovery left me stunned. Why would a thief return the card after using it? And why cut it in half? The only explanation that made sense was that someone wanted to use the card, then ensure I couldn't use it myself when I eventually looked for it. They wanted to delay my discovery of the theft while simultaneously preventing me from trying to use the card and learning it had reached its limit. Only someone who knew me personally would understand my financial habits well enough to execute this plan. Only family would have both the access and the audacity to return the destroyed evidence to my own purse. My hands shaking, I called Rachel, trying to keep my voice casual. "Hey, quick question. Did you notice anything unusual in my office when you were here using the printer?" Her response was immediate and defensive. "What do you mean? Why are you accusing me of something?" "I'm not accusing you of anything," I said carefully. "I just can't find my business credit card and thought maybe you saw it on my desk or something." "Well, I didn't touch your stuff," she snapped. "Maybe you should be more organized instead of blaming other people for your mistakes." After hanging up, I drove to my mother's house, where Rachel had been staying. I needed to observe her reaction in person to see if my suspicions were justified before making direct accusations. My mother welcomed me with surprise, commenting that I rarely visited on weeknights. Rachel was lounging on the couch, scrolling through her phone, and barely looked up when I entered. I settled into an armchair and casually mentioned that I was having a stressful week because money had gone missing from my business account. "That's awful," my mother said with genuine concern. "Did someone hack your accounts?" Before I could answer, Rachel interjected, suddenly interested in the conversation. "That's terrible. It must be hackers. I read about that happening all the time to small businesses. They're easy targets." The speed with which she offered this explanation without asking for any details about how much was missing or how it happened, only strengthened my suspicions. "The bank thinks someone physically took my card," I said, watching Rachel's face carefully. She maintained eye contact, but her fingers tightened around her phone. "Well, you probably just misplaced it. You've always been careless with important things." My mother nodded in agreement. "You do tend to get scattered when you're busy with work, Amanda. I'm sure it will turn up. You should really have better security for your business finances," Rachel added, an edge of nervousness beneath her helpful tone. Maybe this is a wake-up call to be more responsible. As they continued offering helpful suggestions, neither asked basic questions about the amount taken or how it would affect my business. Rachel kept steering the conversation toward my supposed carelessness rather than the theft itself. I left that evening with my suspicions significantly strengthened, the cut card pieces weighing heavily in my purse, and a sick feeling of betrayal settling in my stomach. The next morning, I made a strategic decision to gather concrete evidence before confronting Rachel directly. Accusations without proof would only result in more denial and family drama, potentially allowing her to cover her tracks. I needed documentation that even my enabling mother couldn't dismiss. My first step was contacting the bank's fraud investigation department to request detailed transaction records. They emailed me complete information for each charge, including exact timestamps, locations, and digitized copies of the signed receipts. Each signature was a poor attempt at mimicking mine, with telltale differences anyone familiar with handwriting analysis would immediately spot. Next, I contacted each merchant where the largest purchases had been made. I explained that I was investigating fraudulent use of my business card and needed any information they could provide. 3 stores agreed to meet with me and review their security footage from the dates in question. While gathering these resources, I maintained normal contact with my family, not wanting to alert Rachel that I was building a case. She sent her usual stream of memes and complaints about our mother's boring food, acting as though nothing had changed between us. I also scheduled a consultation with Jessica Murray, a business attorney specializing in fraud cases. Her office was in a renovated industrial building downtown, its exposed brick and steel beams creating an atmosphere of solid dependability that I desperately needed. "Family fraud is more common than people realize," Jessica explained after I shared my suspicions. "Approximately 40% of my cases involve a relative with access and opportunity. The personal relationship provides both means and a built-in shield against accusations." She outlined my options: file a police report leading to potential criminal charges, pursue a civil lawsuit to recover damages, or attempt a family resolution agreement with legally binding repayment terms. "Whatever path you choose, documentation is crucial," she advised. "Collect everything. Build a timeline. Create a file so thorough that denial becomes impossible." Armed with this guidance, I began visiting the stores where the largest purchases had been made. At Luxe Boutique on Newberry Street, the manager, Samantha, was sympathetic to my situation. After verifying my identity, she invited me to review security footage from the day of the largest purchase. The crystal-clear video showed Rachel entering the store at 2:43 in the afternoon, browsing designer handbags before selecting a $4,000 leather tote. She also chose several clothing items, bringing her total to nearly $9,000. The timestamp perfectly matched the transaction record from my bank. Most damning of all, Rachel was wearing my blue cashmere scarf, one I'd left hanging in my apartment hallway the day she visited to use my printer. "She's been in several times recently," Samantha noted as we watched. "She mentioned being a successful business owner in creative design. We assumed she meant you, since the card had your name." Similar visits to Elite Shoes and Bergman Jewelers yielded additional footage, all clearly showing Rachel making expensive purchases with my card. At each location, she had represented herself as me, sometimes explicitly claiming to be Amanda Wilson, owner of Wilson Design Group. The store employees remembered her because of her large purchases and friendly manner, one even commenting that she had mentioned finally rewarding herself after years of building her business. The digital evidence trail proved equally incriminating. Rachel had documented her spending spree across social media, apparently unable to resist showing off her newly acquired luxury items. Her Instagram feed featured selfies wearing designer clothes still bearing tags that matched items on my credit card statement. A post captioned, "Treating myself to some relaxation," showed her enjoying a champagne lunch at Bella Vista restaurant the same afternoon my card was charged $600 there. Her friend Taylor had tagged Rachel in photos from Cloud9 Spa, writing, "Nothing like a bestie spa day. Thanks for the treat, Rachel." The timestamp matched the $3,000 charge for premium treatments and products. Most brazenly, Rachel had created a TikTok video titled "Glow Up Check," showing her before in simple clothing and drugstore makeup, then transitioning to her after wearing items purchased with my stolen card, including the distinctive diamond earrings from Bergman Jewelers that had cost $5,800. By the end of 3 days of investigation, I had compiled overwhelming evidence, security footage from 3 stores clearly showing Rachel using my card, social media posts documenting her wearing the purchased items, transaction records with timestamps matching her documented movements, and statements from store employees who recognized her. I organized everything chronologically in both digital and physical formats, creating a presentation that left no room for denial. During my follow-up consultation with Jessica, I reviewed my options again. The thought of pressing criminal charges against my own sister was painful, despite her betrayal. The potential consequences for credit card fraud exceeding $50,000 were severe: felony charges, possible prison time, and a permanent criminal record that would follow Rachel for life. "There are complications with family cases," Jessica acknowledged. "Many clients struggle with the emotional aspects, even when the evidence is clear. The question becomes, what outcome do you really want?" After careful consideration, I decided to give Rachel one opportunity to admit her actions and agree to make restitution before pursuing legal charges. With Jessica's help, I drafted a repayment agreement that included strict terms: return of all purchased items still in Rachel's possession, liquidation of items that couldn't be returned, and a payment plan for the remaining balance. If she refuses to cooperate or denies everything despite the evidence, we can proceed with filing a police report, Jessica assured me. "The documentation you've gathered would make a very strong case." On Friday afternoon, I returned to the bank to close my compromised account and open a new one with enhanced security features. The bank manager expressed sympathy for my situation, explaining that the cut card had actually triggered an additional security flag in their system. "Cutting a card doesn't erase the evidence," he explained. "The account number and name remain visible, and our system records show when a damaged card is attempted for use. If anything, it created an additional evidence trail." With my case thoroughly prepared, I felt ready to confront Rachel and my mother. The hurt and betrayal remained, but having concrete proof provided a strange sense of calm. I wasn't making accusations based on suspicions or emotions, but presenting irrefutable facts that even the most dedicated enabler couldn't explain away. I scheduled a Sunday dinner at my apartment, inviting both Rachel and my mother, planning to serve my mother's famous pot roast recipe as a reminder of family bonds before revealing the painful truth. Everything was prepared, from the comfort food menu to the organized evidence file waiting in my office. Now I just needed to find the strength to expose my sister's theft and face the family fallout that would inevitably follow. Sunday evening arrived with a knot of tension in my stomach that not even the familiar aroma of pot roast could soothe. I had spent the morning cleaning my apartment and preparing dinner, trying to create an atmosphere of normalcy before the confrontation that would change our family dynamic forever. My mother arrived promptly at 6, bearing her signature apple pie and concerns about traffic. Rachel texted that she was running late, a habitual behavior that had always irritated me but now seemed trivial compared to what was coming. When Rachel finally arrived 40 minutes late, she breezed in without apology, wearing a designer dress I recognized from the Luxe Boutique security footage, its price tag still vivid in my memory: $2,600 charged to my business account. The diamond earrings from Bergman Jewelers glittered at her ears, another $5,800 of my stolen money on display. That dress looks expensive. My mother commented approvingly. You always did have good taste, Rachel. Rachel preened under the compliment, smoothing the fabric with manicured hands. Thanks, Mom. I decided it was time to invest in quality pieces. The irony of her using the word invest while wearing items purchased with stolen funds made my stomach turn, but I maintained my composure. Serving dinner with mechanical precision while they chatted about neighborhood gossip and my mother's book club. Throughout the meal, I observed Rachel carefully, looking for any sign of guilt or anxiety. There was none. She ate heartily, complimented the food, and even asked about how business is going with such convincing concern that for a moment I questioned my own certainty about her guilt. So, Amanda, she said, dabbing her lips with a napkin. Any update on that big client you were hoping to land? Newark something? The audacity of her question, knowing she had jeopardized that very opportunity with her theft, stunned me momentarily. I'm still working on it, I managed to reply. There have been some unexpected financial complications. Business can be so unpredictable, she said with a sympathetic head tilt that didn't reach her eyes. That's why I could never do what you do. Too much stress. After dinner, I served coffee in the living room, my heart pounding as the moment of confrontation approached. My evidence folder and laptop waited on the desk in my office, ready to be retrieved when needed. Actually, I began, setting down my coffee cup with a steady hand that belied my inner turmoil. I wanted to talk to you both about something serious that's happened with my business. My mother's expression shifted to concern. Is everything okay? You've seemed distracted all evening. No, everything isn't okay, I said, my voice quiet but firm. Last week, I discovered that $60,000 was missing from my business account. My mother gasped appropriately. Oh, Amanda, that's terrible. How did that happen? Rachel's reaction was more measured, her expression arranged in what seemed like practiced concern. That's awful. Do they know who did it? I kept my eyes on Rachel as I continued. The money was taken through a series of charges on my business credit card over a 2-week period. Luxury items, expensive restaurants, spa treatments. Well, businesses get hacked all the time. My mother offered, reaching for another cookie. I read about it in the Globe just last month. It wasn't a hack, I said. The physical card was used. Someone took it from my office, used it at multiple locations around Boston, then cut it in half and returned it to my purse. Rachel shifted slightly in her seat, but maintained her concerned expression. That's so strange. Why would someone return it? I've been wondering that myself, I replied. The only explanation that makes sense is that the person wanted to delay my discovery of the theft while making sure I couldn't use the card and discover it had reached its limit. These things happen in business, my mother said dismissively. I'm sure your insurance will cover it. Actually, Mom, these things don't just happen, I countered. This was a deliberate theft by someone who had access to my home and knew my habits. Rachel's posture stiffened. What exactly are you implying, Amanda? I'm not implying anything yet, I said. I'm explaining the situation. The timing of the theft coincides exactly with when you visited my apartment to use my printer, Rachel. Rachel gasped theatrically, her hand flying to her chest. How dare you imply that I had anything to do with this? My mother immediately jumped to her defense. Amanda, she would never do such a thing. She's your sister. You must be really stressed about work if you're imagining things like this, Rachel said, her voice taking on a wounded tone. Maybe you should take a vacation or something. I think your business must be failing if you're missing that much money, my mother added, her brow furrowed with disapproval. And to blame your sister instead of taking responsibility. You should check your own habits, Rachel suggested with false concern. Maybe you've been drinking too much or shopping online late at night and forgetting about it. The gaslighting was so transparent it might have been comical if it weren't so painful. Neither of them had asked how the theft was affecting my business or offered genuine support. Instead, they had immediately shifted to protecting Rachel and questioning my mental state. The tension in the room escalated as Rachel became increasingly defensive and my mother more dismissive of the seriousness of the situation. Finally, my mother laughed. An incredulous sound that cut through the argument. "I can't believe you think a freeloader like your sister would have $60,000, she said, shaking her head. "Rachel can barely pay her phone bill most months. Where would she even get that kind of money?" Rachel stood up, pointing her finger at me accusingly. "This is ridiculous. You have no proof. So shut up with these accusations. You've always been jealous that Mom loves me more." My mother nodded in agreement. "You should apologize to your sister for this horrible accusation. She would never steal from you, and you know it." A wave of betrayal washed over me, so profound it momentarily took my breath away. Despite expecting this reaction, the reality of my mother and sister unified against me, denying obvious truth, still hurt deeply. For a brief moment, I questioned myself. Was I overreacting? Could there be another explanation? Then I remembered the mountain of evidence in my office, the store footage, the receipts, the social media posts. I took a deep breath and met Rachel's defiant gaze. "Actually, I do have proof." "Rachel." A flicker of uncertainty crossed her face before she recovered her indignant expression. My mother looked between us, confusion replacing her certainty. "What do you mean, proof?" she asked. I went to my office and returned with the cut credit card pieces and my evidence folder. I placed the two halves of my business credit card on the coffee table between us. "I found this in my purse. Cutting it was actually the biggest mistake you could have made." Rachel's face drained of color before she quickly composed herself. My mother picked up the card pieces, turning them over in her hands. "This proves nothing," she insisted. "Cards get damaged all the time. Maybe it broke in your purse." I smiled for the first time that evening. "That's where you're both wrong. Let me show you why I'm laughing about this now." I opened my laptop and turned it toward them, displaying the first slide of my evidence presentation, a clear image from Luxe Boutique's security camera showing Rachel at the checkout counter, my credit card in hand, signing the receipt. "This footage is from 2 weeks ago," I explained, my voice steady. "The timestamp matches exactly with when my card was charged $8,799 of this store." Rachel's eyes widened as I clicked to the next slide, a split screen showing the transaction record from my bank statement beside a social media post Rachel had made the same day, wearing the exact outfit purchased at Luxe Boutique. "You documented every purchase, Rachel. Here's the receipt showing you bought this dress you're wearing right now. And here's your Instagram post from that afternoon showing it off." My mother leaned forward, squinting at the screen in disbelief. "That could be anyone. The video isn't that clear." I continued through the presentation methodically, showing footage from 3 different stores, all clearly displaying Rachel using my card. I presented the transaction records with timestamps that perfectly matched Rachel's documented movements on social media. I displayed side-by-side comparisons. Store receipts next to photos of Rachel wearing or using the purchased items. "The cut card actually preserved all the evidence needed," I explained. "The card number and my name remained visible on both pieces, making it easy to prove which account was compromised. The bank's records show every transaction made with this specific card." Rachel's expression transformed from defiance to panic as the evidence mounted. She first attempted to maintain her innocence, insisting, "That's not me in that video. It looks similar, but it's definitely someone else." When that failed in the face of multiple clear videos, she shifted tactics. "Okay, maybe I used your card once or twice for small things, but not for $60,000. That's ridiculous." As I continued presenting irrefutable evidence of each major purchase, her strategy changed again. "Fine, I used it. But you have plenty of money in your business. You wouldn't even have noticed if the bank hadn't alerted you." When that justification gained no traction, she tried shifting blame. "You should have secured your card better. Leaving it in an unlocked drawer is practically asking for it to be taken." Finally, as the last shreds of deniability disappeared, she resorted to claiming entitlement. "After everything I've done for you growing up, all the times I supported you, I deserve something nice for once in my life." My mother sat in stunned silence as Rachel's defenses crumbled, the reality of what her daughter had done becoming impossible to deny. When Rachel finally broke down in tears, they weren't tears of remorse, but of frustration at being caught. I just wanted nice things, she sobbed, mascara streaming down her cheeks. You've always had everything, the good grades, the successful business, the nice apartment. I deserve some too. My mother finally found her voice, though not to condemn Rachel's actions. There must be some explanation, some reason. Rachel must be going through something serious to do this. I closed my laptop, having made my point beyond any reasonable doubt. The explanation is simple, Mom. Rachel saw an opportunity to steal, and she took it. She spent $60,000 of money that wasn't hers, then tried to hide the evidence. It's just money, my mother protested weakly. And you're doing well with your business. Surely you can afford to write this off as a family matter. If you hadn't flaunted your success so much, this wouldn't have happened, she added, attempting to shift some blame to me. Please don't involve the police, she pleaded. You'll ruin her life over material things. Is that what you want? Your father would be so disappointed in you for turning against your sister like this, she said, pulling out the ultimate emotional manipulation. I'll help pay some of it back, she offered desperately. Just drop the matter and we can forget this happened. Throughout my mother's attempts to minimize the situation, Rachel sat sniffling, occasionally nodding in agreement, but offering no genuine apology or acknowledgement of the harm she had caused. I took a deep breath and explained the legal situation calmly. Credit card fraud exceeding $50,000 is a felony offense. The normal penalties include criminal charges and potential prison time. My business insurance requires me to report theft over $10,000, or they won't cover any portion of the loss. I outlined Rachel's options clearly. Full repayment with interest through a legally binding agreement, or formal charges filed with the police and credit card company. You have 30 days to make the first major payment, I explained. Every purchased item must be returned immediately, with receipts provided so the returns can be properly credited. The repayment agreement must be signed and notarized, with consequences spelled out for any default. As the reality of her situation sank in, Rachel's expression shifted from defiance to fear. The potential consequences of her actions were finally becoming clear, and they were far more serious than she had imagined when cutting up my credit card and tucking it into my purse. Rachel stormed out of my apartment after the confrontation, slamming the door hard enough to rattle the pictures on my walls. My mother followed close behind, pausing only long enough to deliver a final plea. Think about what you're doing to this family, Amanda. Is money really worth destroying everything we have? The silence that followed their departure was deafening. I sat alone in my living room, surrounded by the remnants of our dinner and the evidence of my sister's betrayal. The vindication of revealing the truth provided little comfort against the profound sadness of realizing how broken our family relationships truly were. For the first time since discovering the theft, I allowed myself to feel the full weight of emotions I had been holding at bay while building my case. Exhaustion crashed over me, followed by waves of anger, hurt, and a deep sense of loss. After maintaining composure throughout the investigation and confrontation, I finally let tears flow freely, releasing weeks of stress and disappointment. The extended family fallout began almost immediately. My phone buzzed with a call from Aunt Susan, my mother's sister, who had already received my mother's version of events. Your mother called me crying, she began without preamble. She said you're threatening to send Rachel to jail over some missing money. What's going on, Amanda? I explained the situation factually, without emotional embellishment, including the extent of the theft and the evidence I had gathered. Unlike my mother, Aunt Susan responded with appropriate shock. I had no idea it was that serious, she said. Patricia made it sound like you were overreacting to Rachel borrowing your card for a few small purchases. While Aunt Susan expressed support for holding Rachel accountable, other relatives were less understanding. Uncle Robert called to suggest I should let it go for family peace and be the bigger person. My grandmother, however, expressed firm disappointment in Rachel's actions and my mother's enabling response. Stealing is stealing, she stated plainly. Family doesn't make it acceptable. The family group chat exploded with opinions as news spread, with cousins taking sides and debating the appropriate response to theft between siblings. Rachel continued her campaign of minimization, telling relatives I was being vindictive and exaggerating the situation. My mother described it as just a misunderstanding between sisters that I was blowing out of proportion. Through it all, I maintained factual, unemotional responses when asked directly, avoiding the temptation to engage in the drama unfolding across family social media. The evidence spoke for itself, and I refused to justify my right to protect my business and hold my sister accountable. 2 weeks after the confrontation, Rachel, my mother, and I met at Jessica Murray's office to formalize the repayment agreement. Rachel had grudgingly agreed to the terms after Jessica explained that the alternative would be criminal charges with potentially severe consequences. The meeting was tense, with Rachel avoiding eye contact and my mother alternating between sighs of disappointment and attempts to negotiate better terms. Jessica maintained professional detachment, explaining each section of the agreement in detail before Rachel signed. The terms were strict but fair. Rachel would return all items still in her possession and provide receipts for the returns. Items that couldn't be returned would be sold, with proceeds applied to the outstanding balance. She would make monthly payments with interest until the debt was fully satisfied, with clear consequences for any default. During the repayment period, contact between us would be limited to necessary communication through Jessica's office. My business insurance covered a portion of the loss after filing the required documentation, though the deductible was substantial. The bank fraud department closed their investigation once I signed an affidavit confirming that I would not be pressing criminal charges, contingent upon Rachel's compliance with the repayment agreement. At the office, I met with my 2 employees, Lisa and Marcus, to explain the cash flow situation without revealing the personal details. They appreciated the transparency and offered to defer part of their salaries if necessary, a gesture that touched me deeply even though I assured them it wouldn't be needed. I negotiated extended timelines with vendors for planned equipment purchases, explaining that unforeseen circumstances had required adjusting our expansion schedule. Most were understanding, having experienced their own business challenges. The situation prompted me to implement comprehensive new financial security measures across my business. I changed all account numbers, upgraded security protocols, and installed an improved office security system with cameras. I created an emergency fund to protect against future financial shocks and developed a more robust business continuity plan. Perhaps the most significant outcome was the establishment of clearer personal boundaries. Weekly therapy sessions helped me process the family betrayal and develop healthier limits. I decided to maintain distance from Rachel until repayment was complete, with structured, limited contact with my mother governed by clear boundaries around discussion topics and respect requirements. As weeks passed, I developed deeper connections with supportive friends who became my chosen family. People like my college roommate Jenna, who drove 3 hours to spend a weekend helping me reorganize my office and security systems, and my neighbor David, who brought homemade meals during the most stressful days of dealing with insurance and bank paperwork. I learned to recognize manipulation tactics that had once slipped past my defenses and practice self-care rituals to manage stress and support emotional healing. Morning runs, evening journaling, and regular dinner gatherings with friends became anchors in my routine, providing stability during the family upheaval. Gradually, I discovered an unexpected freedom in prioritizing self-protection over family obligation. The weight of constantly managing Rachel's jealousy and my mother's enabling behavior had been so familiar that its absence felt both strange and liberating. For the first time in my adult life, I could focus on my business and personal growth without the drain of toxic family dynamics. With each small step toward rebuilding trust in my own judgment after years of gaslighting, I grew stronger and more certain of my right to protect myself and my business, regardless of family expectations. 1 year has passed since I discovered my cut credit card and confronted my sister about her theft. Looking back from this perspective, I can see how that painful experience transformed both my business and my understanding of family relationships in ways I never could have anticipated. My business has not just recovered, but expanded into a new downtown office space with 5 employees and a client list that includes Newark Technologies, whose contract I was able to secure after implementing a temporary equipment rental solution during the financial recovery. The feature in Boston Business Monthly has been followed by recognition in national design publications, bringing clients from beyond our regional market. Rachel has complied with the repayment plan after initial resistance and several missed deadlines that triggered penalty clauses in our agreement. The structured consequences proved effective in establishing a pattern of accountability that was new in our family dynamic. She has found stable employment at a retail store, ironically selling some of the same luxury items she once stole to possess. My mother has slowly begun to acknowledge the seriousness of Rachel's actions, though she still occasionally attempts to minimize or justify the behavior. Our relationship remains fragile, but is rebuilding on more authentic terms, with clearer expectations about respect and boundaries. Therapy has provided valuable insights about the childhood patterns that contributed to our dysfunctional family system. I now recognize how my mother's enabling behavior fostered Rachel's sense of entitlement and how my own people-pleasing tendencies made me vulnerable to manipulation. Understanding these dynamics hasn't excused the harmful behavior, but has helped me respond to it more effectively. My healing journey included connecting with other business owners who had experienced similar betrayals. A support group for entrepreneurs facing personal challenges provided perspective and practical advice for balancing professional requirements with emotional well-being during crisis. The regularity of these meetings became a cornerstone of my self-care practice, along with morning meditation and weekend hiking trips that reconnected me with nature and my own resilience. As I rebuilt my confidence in personal judgment and instincts, I discovered an ability to recognize early warning signs of toxic behavior in all relationships, not just family ones. This awareness helped me select new team members whose values aligned with the company culture I wanted to create and develop client relationships based on mutual respect rather than people-pleasing. The business itself evolved in response to the crisis, with clearer financial systems and appropriate checks and balances. The emergency fund that grew from this experience proved valuable when an unexpected equipment failure threatened a major project deadline, allowing immediate replacement without financial strain. I began mentoring other women entrepreneurs about business protection strategies, turning my negative experience into valuable wisdom that helped others avoid similar situations. Last month, I was invited to speak at a small business conference about fraud prevention and recovery, sharing practical systems while acknowledging the emotional challenges of betrayal in a business context. The audience response confirmed that my experience, though painful, had produced insights that benefited others facing similar challenges. After Rachel completed the initial repayment requirements, we cautiously resumed limited contact, beginning with a coffee meeting in a neutral location. The conversation was awkward but civil, focused primarily on acknowledging what had happened rather than pretending it hadn't occurred. We have no illusions about immediately returning to close sisterhood, but the possibility of a different kind of relationship built on honesty remains open. My mother has gradually come to understand my need for consequences and boundaries, though she still occasionally slips into old patterns of minimizing Rachel's responsibility. Family gatherings now come with clear expectations about respect and appropriate topics, with selective engagement based on the demonstrated ability to maintain healthy interaction. My personal forgiveness process continues privately, separate from the necessary accountability. I've learned that forgiveness doesn't require forgetting lessons learned or abandoning appropriate protections. It's possible to release bitterness without exposing yourself to repeated harm. The most profound understanding to emerge from this experience is that trust requires verification in all relationships, personal and professional. Love and family connection don't eliminate the need for appropriate boundaries and evidence-based trust. Documentation matters not just in business, but in all important interactions where clarity is essential. I've recognized that loving someone doesn't mean accepting harmful behavior without consequence. True care sometimes requires establishing firm limits that may feel uncomfortable to everyone involved, but ultimately create the only environment where genuine relationship can exist. The strength I found in standing firm for my personal truth despite family pressure has translated into greater confidence in other areas of life. Business decisions, creative directions, and personal choices now come from a place of self-trust rather than external validation. There's a particular freedom that comes from facing difficult realities about loved ones. The fantasy of perfect family support may be gone, but in its place is an authentic understanding of what's actually available and what must be sought elsewhere. This clarity, though initially painful, ultimately created space for healthier connections with friends who demonstrate true support. Perhaps the greatest peace has come from establishing and maintaining healthy boundaries in all relationships. Understanding that I can define acceptable treatment and disengage from situations that violate those standards has been transformative. The growth that emerges from navigating painful challenges with integrity becomes its own reward, creating resilience that no future betrayal can diminish. As I continue balancing compassion with self-protection in all relationships, I wonder about your experiences with family boundaries. Have you ever had to establish difficult limits with loved ones? What helped you maintain them despite pressure? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and if this story resonated with you, please like, subscribe, and share with someone who might need to hear that standing up for yourself isn't selfish, it's necessary. Thank you for listening to my journey. And remember that sometimes the hardest boundaries to set are the ones that ultimately bring the most peace.